meeting. So he talked to Tammy Walhoff, who's our organizer for the Upper Midwest. She's here. And he said, should I try to get a meeting? She said, oh, sure. He said, well, I really haven't studied this. Well, anyway, he went in and he took 2 or 3 people along with him because he was nervous about going to see Mr. Leach on this issue. And it was at the end of the day. They were waiting in his office. The congressman was late. He said, I am sorry. I just can't take time to meet with you. I got to get out to the airport. So he said, why doesn't one of you get in the car with me? And you can explain it on the way to the airport. Tammy tells me, people from Iowa would know that the trip from Jim Leach's office to the airport in Cedar Rapids is a short trip. Is this true?
Yeah.
It's not a long trip. So Tom had like, boom, got to explain this thing. And Tammy had, and so he asked Mr. Leach to help us, just put it on the agenda. Shortly after that, in fact, we got our meeting with Mr. Leach. And Jim Leach is a lapsed Catholic who goes to an Episcopal church, I think. So we went with representatives of the Catholic Church and the Episcopal Church and Bread for the World. But we walked in and the chairman said, not only will I put it on the agenda, I want to sponsor the bill. And I was sitting next to one of his staffers. It was chairs like this. And that staffer he almost fell off the chair. It was really dramatic. So then Leach, we did it as a bipartisan bill. The bill moved. He moved it through the Banking Committee 2 weeks before the G8 summit that year. It was President Clinton's last G8. And Larry Summers by then was the Secretary of the Treasury. These movements, mainly among Republicans in the House, convinced Larry Summers that this issue had zip. And so the president took the basic ideas in the Leach debt relief bill to the G8 summit. And that resulted, as this very knowledgeable crowd would know, it took a lot of other effort. Tens of thousands of other citizens had to work with other members of Congress. It took us 2 years to get it authorized and then appropriated and so forth. But it has resulted in the reduction, a $78 billion reduction in debt. Mostly debt that poor countries couldn't have paid anyway. But their actual debt service payment has been reduced by $3 billion a year. It's affected about 35 of the poorest countries, relatively well-governed countries. And the deal has been that the industrialized countries and the international financial institutions will write off your debt if you use that money and some of your own money to invest in basic education, health, agriculture, things that are going to reduce poverty. So it's had by all accounts, it has worked really well. It's strengthened democracy in some countries. And just one clear example of an impact is the 30 million more kids who are in school. That came out of Tom Booker, this one Iowan, daring to take on a complex global issue and going to his member of Congress with his values and asking him to help reduce hunger and poverty in the world. So, so in Mtimbe, that school, that's what sent shivers down my spine. The school in that little town, not even a town, that little settlement in remote Mozambique is there in significant part because one Iowan dared to be an advocate for hungry people.
Yeah, that's a good... That's a really powerful example. And from that, in terms of raising the clamor, and that's one thing that we try to do at the council or myself, outrage and inspire.
You're great. You're good at it, actually. You're really good at it. Enough is a good book.
Thank you. And that, but as one sees that, you hear this story and kind of earth moving on the debt relief issue. And what we need to ask is, why not hunger? And let's put that effort behind the hunger effort. And just so we want to say, why hunger? Why is there so much hunger in the world? We also need to ask, why not hunger? If we can do these things on debt relief, the marvelous things that have gone on AIDS reduction, the things that are happening on climate change, why not hunger? Now, Joel, if you want to say something about...
Because I was telling you how we work with advocacy, we live the example and provide some of the data and proof, and also how you can be highly successful and also what it means sometimes at the smallest level. It's so important. But very quickly, the reason Heifer is successful and the reason I'm drawn there and been kept there is because they have learned so much over 66 years. And when I came, and I was head of international program and a great orientation, and I went to all these wonderful experts around the world, and many of you helped, we facilitated. I said, tell me what it is that makes Heifer unique. What is special? And of course, you know, do you want nouns? Do you want principles? I said, I don't care. Just give me words. I'm a teacher. Just let's get started on this. It took us several months when you communicate all over the world. This came from the ground up, not just farmers, but the brilliant leaders. You know, all our country directors are more educated than I am. They have their doctorates, they have everything else. And that's the way I like it, because it makes their boss look good. But it is important to bring them to the table and hear. So we ended up developing the 12 cornerstones based on the core values of what we do. And we've taken Dan West's vision another step. And we say it has to be full participation, gender equity, family focus, accountability, genuine need and justice, you know, caring for the earth, better animal management, integration of crop, and I won't tell you all that, but it's important. And every time we look at something in a project and evaluate it, that is considered. And the people on the ground organize, they make the decisions, they monitor it. If you don't do it well, they take it away for someone else. We are there to help them and support them. But they make those decisions, and that's why in the Andes they're reintroducing alpaca, you know, the llama, and at the highlands it's guinea pigs. It's the only place they have space to have their protein. So that is the approach, and I'd be happy, any of us would, to tell you a bit more about that, because it has turned into a development model that has been adopted. The World Bank once even asked us to come in a place where something wasn't sustainable and work with them. And so I won't go into all that. But I want you to know that is the real approach and the secret of sustainability. And so my dream, after winning this great honor, I represent the farmers, but by receiving it for them, is that we're going to get more exposed now to not only the great advocacy organizations, but corporate support and interest. Agribusiness. You know, for years the little farmer and the agribusiness were kind of at odds. They don't need to be. They don't have to agree on everything, but they need to take the best from each other. And whatever they need to do, they need to know the impact. So my dream, and I've been hearing a lot of great things about the importance of that small farmer and ending hunger. Certainly that's not the only way to do it, but we need to come together. And you know, I think we're getting ready to. David said, I say the stars are lined up. You know, our administration, our Secretary of Agriculture, our Secretary of State, Raj, Administrator of USAID, all these people, golly, World Food Prize brings them together, I'll tell you that. And what a great opportunity to have that. We don't have the resources, but we can sure lay the plan and we're going to have those resources. So that's a dream and this is an opportunity. And Roger, thank you so much for the good questions and opportunities to speak.
Thank you. I put my glasses on because Frank flashed me. Frank didn't flash me, but Frank flashed me a sign. Frank gave me a sign. I had to put my glasses on for that too. But
all times I can't see very well, you know.
No, that there's 10 minutes or so left, and so I think if we could maybe get some questions from the audience, if anybody has any. But when I say, what you're hearing here is, I think a lot of times, and it's so common that we look at the hunger problem, and it seems to be so immense, and we're kind of paralyzed with, well, what can we do? What can one person do? And as one just hears from Joe Luck, there's so much to do, and David speaks eloquently about this kind of exodus, divinely inspired that is happening, and he writes about that a lot in his book, and so kind of these two folks really embodying the optimism that we can do this and make great inroads on this. Question in the back?
Hi, my name is Isaac, and I'm with the Oxfam Action Corps, and I'm a volunteer. And somebody on the panel mentioned the Feed the Future initiative of the administration, And something that we've been advocating for is the Global Food Security Act, which would hopefully extend the viability of that Feed the Future initiative beyond the current administration. Just wondering what you and David in particular thought about that bill.
We supported the Global Food Security Act. It was a Lugar-Casey bill. I think the fact that Lugar-Casey introduced that bill already maybe 4 or 5 months before the administration really outlined their Feed the Future, what became Feed the Future, helped to get the administration to move. We supported it. It didn't pass before the end of this last Congress. And my guess is if it's reintroduced, what they may do is introduce a bill that more closely aligns itself with what the administration's doing, so that in fact the legislation really will undergird, give the force of law to some of the things that are underway. And that would be really important because it's bipartisan legislation. It would make the emphasis and the initiative to promote agriculture and reduce hunger in the world a long-term commitment of the U.S.